Hello students, good evening and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. So today we'll be having our webinar related to current affairs based mains answer writing. So I'll just wait for a minute to ensure that everyone can join the class. And meanwhile, the people who have joined, just let me know whether I'm audible and visible. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll be starting our webinar. But before that, here is a quick reminder that we still have our prelims test series that is going on right now. All of you, you have the access to it. So I request all of you to do not stop attending these tests because they will provide you a simulation as to how you will be able to prepare and how you'll be able to attempt your final UPSC prelims paper. You know that UPSC has already declared the dates for the paper, right? So it is very necessary that you try and understand, try and prepare in such a manner that you are able to crack this prelims exam. Okay? Okay, now we'll start with the webinar now. So here are the 5 topics that we'll be taking. Before that, just a quick recap as to what is the structure of any answer in mains. Okay, most of you, you know it. Just a quick recap of that. In your mains answer, be it any subject, be it GS, be it optional, be it any subject, you have to include 3 parts. You have to include the introduction, where you will introduce how are you going to write your answer. Okay, then you have the body part. Now this is the main part of your answer where you'll be talking about all the things that the question has asked you about, and finally you will conclude your answer, a concluding statement depending upon what has been asked. Okay, so this is the structure of any answer that you write in your mains, be it GS paper, GS 1, 2, 3, 4, or be it your optional subjects. So please ensure that you include all these 3 parts. Okay, so the topics that we will be discussing today are quantum computing, which will be helpful in GS paper 3. Then we have Western disturbances and water security issues in India. And this will be helpful for GS 1, that is your geography portion. Then we have International Year of Millets. 2023 has been declared as the International Year of Millets. And this will be helpful in, again, GS 3. And then we have these 2 topics. One related to policy. India, the most populous country, where we'll be discussing the India's population policies. And NATO in Asia. This is a topic of international relations. So both of these, they'll be helpful in your GS paper 2. Okay, so we'll start with the first topic, that is quantum computing. So why is this topic in news? We'll discuss that, but first let us take a look at the question that we'll try to answer using the information in the upcoming slides. Okay, what do you understand by quantum computing? How is India prepared to take a lead in this field? So this is a 10-marker question which you have to complete within 150 words. Just please confirm whether video and audio is visible. Okay, thank you so much. So anyone who is not able to see me or hear me, kindly refresh your screen, okay? So you'll be able to do it because rest of the people, they are able to see and hear, okay? So what is the context? Why have we taken this particular topic? Is because a 2-day symposium was organized by CDAC. What is CDAC? It is the Center for Development of Advanced Computing, which is a society under the Ministry of Electronics, IT, under Ministry of Electronics and IT, which is also known as METI. Okay. So this is a society under the Ministry of Electronics and IT, which provides a platform for various stakeholders like the researchers, like the industry, like the R&D experts to come together on a single platform and discuss about advanced computing technologies. So quantum computing is one such technology, and for that the symposium was organized. Okay, so what is quantum computing? So quantum computing is use of machines that use quantum physics principles to undertake computing operations. Now you'll ask, what is quantum physics? So quantum physics is a field of physics that deals with particles, very small particles like atoms, like electrons, like protons, like neutrons, and so on. So quantum physics, it deals with the behavior and the physics of these small particles, and quantum computers, they use the properties of these particles in order to undertake various computing operations like basic calculations, right? And other computing like data analysis, like calculations, like research, whatever you do using a simple computer, the quantum computer uses these particles and their properties to do the same tasks. So unlike the bits that are the basic unit of simple computing, so bits, this is one term that is used in classical computing. It is the basic unit of the classical computers. So 8 bits, they form a byte. Then 1024 bytes, they form a kilobyte. And similarly 1024 kilobytes, they make 1 megabyte, and so on. So bits is the basic unit of normal computing, and its counterpart in quantum computing, we have qubits. Now what is the difference between bits and qubits? Bits, they are made up of silicon. They are basic silicon chips, okay? Whereas qubits, they are made up of physical systems like electrons, like photons, and so on. So I told you that quantum computing is going to use these particles in order to conduct computing activities. So qubits, they are made up of these particles like electrons, like photons, to undertake computing processes. So what is the benefit? What is the benefit of this? Why use qubits? Why not simple bits? Because what happens in qubits and what happens in bits? First of all, a bit can take only two values. It is binary in nature. Binary, that is, it can only take two values. It can either be 0 or it can be 1. You can see it over here. It can either be 0 or it can be 1. Whereas what in case of qubits? It can be either 0 or 1, or it can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. So that is known as a superimposition property. So this is a superimposition property, that is a property of quantum particles. You do not need to go in further details that what is superimposition and what other things, because that is completely out of your syllabus, okay? So just know that because of the superimposition property of quantum particles, these particles can take either 0 value, either 1 value, or they can be both 0 and 1 simultaneously. So what is the benefit of that? Now you know that 8 bits, they make up 1 byte. So if we make it like this, here are 8 dashes, right? So this can be either 0 or 1, that is, it can take up 2 values. This can be 0 or 1. Similarly, all these dashes, they can be 0 or 1, right? So what does that mean? How many values can be made out of this? It is 2 to the power 8. You must have learned basic probability, right? So 2 to the power 8 values can be taken up using 1 byte. It can be 1 0 0 1 0 0 1 0, or if this is 0 1 0 0 0 and so on. So 256 values can be taken. That is, it can count from number 0 to number 255. Why not 256? Because 0 is also included over here. So it can count from 0 to 255. What happens in case of qubit? Now qubit, same 8 dashes it has, right? Here it can either be 0 or be 1 or be both the things. So at the same time, it can be any value between 0 to 255, right? This, it can be one value at one time, whereas in qubits, it can be one value it can be multiple values at one time itself, right? So while, for example, for counting one number, a byte, it takes 1 second. So what will happen? To count 256 numbers, it will take 256 seconds, right? But qubit, it can be all the numbers at a single time only. So in that 1 second where byte is calculating just one value, qubit will be able to calculate 256 values simultaneously. So if you take an example over here, I'll write over here. So if you take an example over here, if there are 2 points A and B, and there are 256 ways to go from A to B. So what will a normal computer do? It will first analyze path 1, then it will analyze path 2, then it will analyze path 3 until path 256, because it cannot calculate all of them at the same time. It will calculate 1, 2, 3 and so on. Okay, so if calculating one path, calculating the efficiency of one path, it takes 5 seconds, say 10 seconds, then it will take 256 into 10 seconds to calculate the overall efficiency. What is the most efficient path between A and B? But what about quantum computing? Quantum computing, it can analyze all those paths at a single time. So it will do the whole thing in 10 seconds, what the conventional computer is taking 2560 seconds. Simultaneously means at the same time. Okay. So quantum computing does that same work in 10 seconds, while the normal computer is taking 2560 seconds. So that is why these quantum computers, they are very fast and they are very efficient. So that is why the whole world is in a race to develop more and more quantum computers and try to use their properties. Okay? Fine. So now that we have understood how the quantum computers work, let us try to understand their history. How have they developed and what is their status right now? So this theory of quantum computers was given first in 1980s by two scientists. One is Richard Feynman and Yuri Manin. So separately they gave this theory of using quantum particles for computing operations. But until 1994, this was just a theory. It was not understood that what kind of programs need to be written to use the quantum computers for such activities, for real world problems. So it was first in the year 1994 when Shor algorithm was developed by a scientist known as Peter Shor. So what did he do? He developed an algorithm to find prime factors of integers. If you don't know the meaning of prime or integer or prime factor, doesn't matter, just know one thing, that for the first time, the Shor algorithm showed that even for the real world problems, the quantum computers can be used. So that was a big breakthrough. In the year 1998, there was a development of a first 2-qubit quantum computer. Okay, so 2-qubit, in the normal computing terms, it is a 2-bit computer. Okay, in 2011, first commercially available quantum computer was developed by a company known as D-Wave, And then IBM, which had simultaneously been working on this technology, it in the year 2019, they released their own quantum computer known as Quantum System 1, which they further developed. And by 2022, they had their largest quantum computer of the entire world yet, known as Osprey. Okay. So right now, more than 600 companies and more than 30 national governments, they are working to develop this quantum computing technology. So right now, that is not right now, in 2021, it was estimated that the value of the quantum computing economy in the world is 395 million US dollar. IBM is a company, okay? It is a company that makes chips, computer chips. So by the year 2028, it is expected that this value, it will grow to 532 million US dollars. Okay, so that is the potential of quantum computing. Now you'll ask, like, why are we studying it? What is the benefit of this? So we'll go to that. So the advantage, the biggest advantage is that of speed. Now I told you that what the normal computer will take 2560 seconds to complete, the quantum computer will be able to complete it within 10 seconds. So it is very fast compared to a normal computer, and that is why it can be used to solve many kinds of complex problems that the normal computers cannot do. Okay. Moreover, they are more energy efficient. Why? Because definitely they are taking lesser amount of time to solve a problem. So they'll require electricity for lesser amount of time, right? So they are also more energy efficient compared to normal computers. Rajkumar, no, supercomputers are different and quantum computers are different, okay? These are two different things. I'll come to Quest and other things in the upcoming slides, okay? So what are the limitations of these computers, these quantum computers? The biggest limitation is that they require very specific conditions for their working. One, there should be no atmospheric pressure in the room where they are situated, okay? Zero atmospheric pressure should be there. Right now, what you and I are under is 1 atmospheric pressure, 1 atmosphere. That is the amount of pressure on our heads right now. But for quantum computers to work, there should be no atmospheric pressure. Secondly, the temperature should be near 0 Kelvin, okay? And the third problem is there should be no interference of Earth's magnetic field. So these are very strict conditions that need to be followed for any quantum computer to work. Okay. So this is the biggest limitation in their development. It is very difficult to establish such conditions, very costly and very difficult. Moreover, if there is even a slight external interference in these quantum computers where they are, external interference like any magnetic or electric interference, then what will happen? The qubits that are made up of what? Electrons or photons or any other quantum particle, they will disintegrate. They will stop working. The qubits will disintegrate, or there is a process, a technical term used for that known as decoherence. So the computers, these quantum computers, they might collapse. They'll stop working in case there is any external interference. Also, what if there is any error? So right now, we do not have the technology to even properly detect the errors in these computers, or if there is any error, how to correct it. So we haven't developed the technology properly for that purpose, okay? Also, retrieving data from these computers is difficult. From a normal computer, what do? You put a pen drive, You copy the stuff over there, you take out the pen drive, and you can use it anywhere, right? But for quantum computers, it is very difficult to retrieve the data. Also, there is a danger that the data that has been developed, that the solution that has been made in the quantum computer, before we retrieve it, it might get decayed, because these qubits, they are not very stable, right? So what will happen? By the time we go there to try to retrieve the data might get decayed. It might get decoherence, right? So that is another limitation. So these are the major limitations related to quantum computers, and that is why it is difficult to use them at the current status of technology. External interference, Varsha, it means that any external magnetic or electric field, if it comes in the room where the quantum computer is situated, then the quantum computer, the particles that are making the qubits, they will get destroyed. Okay, the qubits, they will get destroyed, and this process is known as decoherence. So Nikhil, I hope I have cleared your doubt as well. Okay, so now what about India? How is India doing in this field? So India, you know that India is a leader globally when it comes to IT softwares, right? So for the same purpose, we also want to lead in the quantum computing and supercomputing and other fields as well, other computing fields as well. So in 2018, the government of India, we started a scheme called Quest, where 80 crores was to be invested in development of the quantum enabled science and technology. That is quantum technology, quantum computers, communication, quantum cryptography, and so on. Okay, so this went on for 3 years. After that, what happened? During the 2020-21 budget, the government announced the National Mission on Quantum Technology and Applications. This mission was worth 8,000 crores, and it will go on for 5 years since then. That is till 2025-26. Okay. Then many quantum computing labs, they are also being set up in the country. One such lab has been set up in the place called Mau in Madhya Pradesh by the Indian Army, and it is supported by the National Security Council Secretariat. Okay. There is another lab that has been developed by this agency called CDOT. What is CDOT? Center for Development of Telematics. So this is also a government agency, and they have also set up a lab for quantum computing in October 2021. Then CDAC also, it is performing its role in bringing together the various stakeholders on a single platform for quantum computing technologies. And apart from that, it has also collaborated with DIAT, that is Defense Institute of Advanced Technologies. So it has associated with DIAT in establishing one more lab related to quantum technologies. Also, the government of India, the Department of Science and Technology, they have also developed along with IISER Pune, a hub for quantum technology in IISER Pune. Now, apart from this institute, another institute which is doing tremendous amount of work in quantum computing is IIT Madras. So there is a Center for Quantum Information, Communication and Computation that has been established at IIT Madras to help the students and the professor to conduct research and development in the field of that. Okay. And this is supported by a private company known as Mphasis. Apart from that, IIT Madras is also a part of IBM's, the company which is a pioneer in development of both supercomputers and quantum computers. So it has collaborated, it has become a part of IBM's quantum network. So what is the benefit of that? It will be able to use the quantum computing resources and study material that IBM has developed. So if any of your friends, any of your siblings, they want to work in quantum computing, you know the institutes that they should go to, right? Now, apart from that, apart from domestic efforts, India is also undertaking international efforts in terms of quantum computing. In fact, recently you must have heard in news that our NSA, National Security Advisor, met USA's NSA to discuss on our initiative, our joint initiative on critical and emerging technologies. So amongst these technologies, one of the technologies is quantum computing. Apart from that, with EU, that is European Union as well, we have a Trade and Technology Council, a collaborative known as Trade and Technology Council, which also includes discussions related to quantum computing. Okay. Yes, it is ICET. It is known as that. Okay. So now we again come to the question that we asked in the starting. What do you understand by quantum computing? How is India prepared to take a lead in this field? So here is a small framework that you can use for writing your answer. And please make sure that once the class is over, all of you try to write this answer at least once, either tonight or tomorrow morning. So in the introduction, you can just introduce that quantum computing is a revolutionary technology that will greatly enhance or speeden up our data processing abilities. Okay, because they are much faster compared to the normal computers. They'll help us in solving such complex problems that the normal computers cannot work upon. Okay, so that will be your introduction. You have given a premise what you want to talk about in the upcoming body part, right? Okay, so in the body, you'll write, first of all, they have asked about what is quantum computing, right? So you'll give that answer about quantum computing. We'll talk about quantum computing. It uses principles of quantum physics. It uses qubits instead of bits, right? And you'll also talk about the various advantages and in brief talk about limitations, that they require very specific conditions for their functioning, and many of the technologies that have been developed for normal computing like error resolution, like retrieving of data, it has not been done for quantum computers. Then you come to the next part. How is India prepared to take a lead in this field? Here you can start by how India already is a global leader when it comes to software development for normal computing. So that is why we want to develop our expertise in quantum computing as well. And then you can mention all the various initiatives that we talked about in the previous slides, be it domestic or be it international, right? So this will be your body part. And in the conclusion, you can write that yes, quantum computing is a revolutionary technology, but even right now, it is still in a nascent phase and a lot of development needs to be done in the field for it to become commercially available. So that will conclude your answer and that will be your whole answer. Please write it. Please try to write this answer in 150 words, either tonight or tomorrow morning, okay? Now we come to our second topic, Western disturbances and water security. Okay. So the first we'll read out the question. The non-monsoonal precipitation brought by Western disturbances has a huge impact on India's water security. Elucidate. That is, you have to elaborate with examples on this particular statement, right? So first of all, what is the context? Why have we taken this? Because right now, like in the past few weeks, the northern part of India, it has been under it has been experiencing rains due to the impact of western disturbances. Now, first, a small background of what exactly are western disturbances. Okay, so western disturbances, they are storms. They are storms that are generated in extratropical. They are not generated in the tropical regions. They are generated outside the tropical regions. So that is why they are known as extratropical or mid-latitudinal storms. So they originate in areas like Mediterranean Sea or Western Asia. Mediterranean Sea and Caspian Sea, to be very precise. They generate over there, over these areas, and by the action of jet streams, that are winds that flow in the upper troposphere. So by the action, by getting trapped with these jet streams, they start moving this side. They start moving eastward. For India, they're coming from the western side, okay? So they start moving eastward, and when they hit the Himalayas, that is when they start raining in the northern part of India and also some parts of Pakistan and northern Bangladesh. Okay, so they bring winter rainfall to India. Okay, cool. So sometimes what happens, these western disturbances, apart from gaining moisture from here, they can also gain moisture from the Arabian Sea region, and they will cause more rain, right? Now, they are most frequent between December to March. However, in the other months, it is not, their presence is, it is not necessary that they are not present in the other months. They are most prominent in these months, but they might be present in other months as well. Please keep this in mind. If they ask you a question that western disturbances only take place between December to March, so that will be a wrong statement. They are present even from October up till April, May, even June. Okay, so they are present, but they are most functional during these months. So they cause precipitation in northwestern parts of India and sometimes over other parts of India as well. Okay, right. Okay. So what about water security? How are western disturbances related to water security of India? So India gets 5 to 10% of its total rain from western disturbances, from these western disturbances itself. So out of a total rain, this big amount is coming from these western disturbances. So that makes it very important for our water security reasons, right? So they provide us moisture for the ragi crops. Now ragi crops, they are sown after Diwali. They are sown around in the month of October, November. And when they are growing the most, they require a lot of moisture. Any plant, when it is growing, it requires a lot of moisture, right? So these western disturbances, they are providing these plants with the moisture during their growing months. That is between December to March, right? So that is why they are very important for the rabi crops of India. And failure of rainfall due to these western disturbances is often associated with failure of crops in that particular area, failure of ragi crops. Okay, I'm so sorry, it's rabi crops. I've been saying it wrong all along. It's rabi crops, not ragi crops. Okay, ragi is another topic. Okay, so they are, apart from that, apart from providing moisture to the rabi crops, they are also important for replenishment of Himalayan glaciers. So what happens when they hit the Himalayas in the upper altitudes? Instead of providing liquid rain, they provide snow. So this snow, it gets aggregated on the glaciers and they help in increasing the size of the glaciers. Now in the spring, in the summertime, these glaciers melt and they provide water to most of the northern part of India. So again, if the glaciers are not replenished regularly, yearly, annually by these western disturbances, then the water security of the northern part of India, at least, it will be highly endangered. So this is another important factor with regards to western disturbances, right? Then this thing, they are also known to activate the Indian summer monsoons. The monsoons that we get in the monsoonal month, that is between June to September, October. The monsoon that we get, the western disturbances also help in activating that. Now here is a flow chart related to that. You do not need to go into extensive depth because this has been taken from a research paper, a high level research paper that not even geography students need to read, okay? So just look at it and try to analyze the connection between western disturbances which cause snow on the Himalayas. Now this fact you need to know that the Tibetan Plateau is very important when it comes to Indian monsoons. Why? You don't need to know. That is geography optional area, okay? So Tibetan Plateau, it is very important for India's monsoons, and western disturbances, they help in heating up of the Tibetan Plateau. And that is how they help in activation of the Indian summer monsoon as well. In the answer, when they ask you western disturbances and water security or Indian monsoons, just know that they are important for activation of the Indian monsoons, okay? Now, what about climate change? Now, climate change, you know, it is creating a havoc all across the world when it comes to any proper climate or weather events in the world. So the weather events, they are becoming very variable. Sometimes it rains so much, sometimes it does not rain. So what is the impact of climate change over western disturbances? So first is the climate change. It will increase the variability of winter precipitation that we are getting. A very good example here is of Delhi. In the year 2021, in October, Delhi got the highest amount of rain in the past 65 years. It got 122.5 centimeter of rain compared to normal rain, that is 28 centimeter. So it was the wettest October of Delhi till date. Even in 2022, January and February, there was excess rainfall in Delhi. Now compare that to March. In March, when the western disturbances, they are considered to be active in precipitation, in March 2022, there was no precipitation in Delhi, and this was one of the warmest March for Delhi, where the heat waves, they started from the March month itself because of failure of western disturbances to cause precipitation. Also in 2022 December, in 21, the western disturbances started showing precipitation since October itself. In 2022, up until 15th December, there was no precipitation or no action of western disturbances over Delhi. So you can see how it has been variating. Normally between December to March, the state of Delhi, it should get rains through western disturbances. But you will see the variation that has been caused only within a span of 1 year. Okay, so definitely there has been an impact of climate change on the weather variability related to western disturbances. Okay. Apart from that, according to this geologist AP, sorry, not geologist, geography expert AP Dimri. So according to him, what is happening these days is that the number of western disturbances, number of these storms that are coming to India, their frequency is increasing. If previously we were getting 5, now we are getting more than that. Now we are getting 7 to 8 of these western disturbances. But the precipitation, the associated precipitation is not increasing. So the western disturbances, their frequency is increasing, but the precipitation that they bring, that is not increasing. So that is also a impact of climate change on western disturbances. Okay. Also, the biggest problem here, with biggest problem related to water security here, is that because the environment is warming up, most of the precipitation that we are getting, it is in the liquid form, that is in the form of rain and not in form of snow. In the previous slide we talked about how snow is very important for replenishment of the Himalayan glacier. Replenishment, that means regrowth of the Himalayan glaciers, right? It is very important for that. But because of the warming weather, the snow is not taking place and instead rain is going over there, right? Also, it has been theorized by experts that this variability in the western disturbances can also lead to an increase in variability of our summer monsoons, because western disturbances are responsible for activation of the summer monsoons. Moreover, the extreme weather events associated with these western disturbances, they are also expected to increase in the coming time. Now, many experts say that anomalous or abnormal western disturbances were the reason for such bad situations in 2000 in Leh, that during the cloudburst, in 2000 during the Uttarakhand floods, in 2014 in the Kashmir floods. Okay, so many experts say that western disturbances, anomalous western disturbances that took place out of their usual weather, they were responsible for these conditions. Okay, so in the upcoming time, due to the impact of climate change, such anomalous weather, such weather variabilities and such extreme weather events will also increase due to western disturbances. Okay, so now we'll come to the question once again. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, cool. So the non-monsoonal precipitation brought by western disturbances has a huge impact on India's water security. Elucidate. So here you, in the introduction, you will define the western disturbances, that they are extra tropical storm. They are extra tropical storms that cause winter precipitation in India. They originate in the Mediterranean region and West Asian regions, and they come to India by the action of jet streams. Okay. Then you come to the body part. In the body part, you will talk about how western disturbances, they are important for India's water security and how their failure can lead to crop failures and drought-like conditions during the summers. Okay. So you'll mention that they bring 5 to 10% of the precipitation to India. It's annual precipitation. Then apart from that, they are very important for the rabi crops, for replenishment of the glaciers, and for the activation of the monsoons. Okay. So this will conclude your body part, and then in the conclusion, you will write that there has been many vagaries or many variations in the patterns of western disturbances in the past few years, and more research is required as to how climate change is impacting western disturbances owing to their importance with regards to India's water security. So that will help you in concluding your answer. Okay. This is Rabi. This is not Ragi. This is a typo. This is a typing error. This is Rabi crops. We have Rabi and Kharif crops, right? So this is a Rabi crop, right? Okay. There is a positive importance of western disturbances. Okay, they are bringing winter precipitation. That is the positive. They are very important for water security of India, right? So they are very important for us. Okay, yeah. So yes, western disturbances, they are very beneficial for us, but due to climate change, there can be many variations associated with western disturbances that might impact, that might create disaster-like situations in India. Okay? Yeah. Okay then. We'll move on to the next topic now. That is International Year of Millets. Just a second. Okay, so what is the question? The question is, millets are nutritionally beneficial, and their popularization will also benefit developing societies both socially and economically. Elaborate. You have to elaborate or expand this statement as to how they are nutritionally beneficial. Why is this statement calling them nutritionally beneficial, and why will their popularization will benefit the developing societies in social and economic manner? You have to elaborate on that. Okay. Okay. So why have we taken this topic? So Yojana, last month's Yojana, January's Yojana, it was completely dedicated to millets. Why? Because according to United Nations, 2023 has been declared as the International Year of Millet. And the best part is that it is on the request of India. So India submitted a proposal in 2017 to FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, and finally it was accepted by United Nations, and 2023 was declared as an International Year of Millet. So what is millet? What do you mean by millets? Millets are a family of small seeded grasses. Now you know that wheat is also a type of a grass, right? But they are not small seeded. The wheat grain is bigger. The rice grain is bigger. These are also grasses. But what about millets? Millets are small seeded grasses. You can see over here such tiny seeds. They are very tiny seeds. They are small seeded grasses. It is a family of crops. Now, what all crops are included? That will come in the upcoming slides. Don't worry. So, millets, they are one of the first crops that humans domesticated. So, according to records, we have been consuming millets for the past 7,000 years, and it is the millets that were responsible for finally stable societies or settled societies that performed agriculture. Okay, so they are so old, they have been consumed for so many years. In India too, there have been proofs that millets have been consumed since the Bronze Age itself. In fact, in Indus Valley civilization, you must have read in your history part that jowar, or also known as sorghum, it was consumed by the people in Indus Valley itself, right? Now, until the Green Revolution in India, the millets, they contributed to 40% of our cultivated grain production. Sorry. They contributed to 40% of our cultivation. However, what happened after Green Revolution? The share of cultivated land, it went to wheat and rice, and the share of these millets, it started reducing. Now, what was the reason behind it? Why did we not develop millets? Because they were also consumable. Why did we go for wheat and rice itself? That was because India needed a lot of food to feed its people. Okay, we needed a huge amount of food, And the research on millets was not that high level. Not much research was done on millets because the Western countries that had the money for research, they could research only on their crops. And their major crops were wheat and rice, right? So research was available only on wheat and rice on how to increase the production of these crops. We could not on our own increase the production of the millets. So that's why we had to import this knowledge regarding wheat and rice, and the millets, they took a backseat. Okay. So what are some important millets? This is just for your information that suppose in prelims, they ask you which of the following come under millets. So you'll know the answer. We have jowar, known as also sorghum. We have bajra, known as pearl millet. Then we have ragi. This is ragi. This is not rabi. Okay. We have ragi, which is also known as finger millet. We have kangni, foxtail millet, kodra, kodo millet, jhangora, which is known as barnyard millet, and we have barri, known as common millet. So these are some of the important millets. Now, what is the importance of millets? Why is the world becoming so conscious about use of millets? Now, first we'll go to nutritional and health benefits. Okay. So first of all, they have a high protein content. Now compare that to other cereal crops like wheat and rice. Millets have a very high protein content. So apart from food security, they can also help us in covering nutritional security as well. They also also have a low amount of a protein known as gluten. Now many people, they are allergic to this particular protein. Okay, so these millets, especially for those people, they become a very important source of nutrition. They have a very high amount of fiber content. Now what is the importance of this fiber content? This provides us with roughage that helps in keeping our digestive system working properly. It helps in aiding our digestion and help us avoid any digestive or gastric problems. It is also rich in many types of micronutrients. Micronutrients like calcium, like iron, like magnesium, like phosphorus, like potassium. So our body requires a lot of micronutrients to function properly. For example, magnesium. It is very important for glucose management in our body. To manage the amount of glucose in our body, magnesium is very important. So that is why the people who have diabetes, they are advised to avoid rice and wheat and instead move on to eating these millets, okay, because that helps in keeping your glucose levels under control, keeping your diabetes under control. Okay, it can also improve the health of the heart. It these minerals like magnesium, like potassium, they are very important for the heart's health, for keeping our heart healthy, keeping our heart's rhythm constant. Okay, so consuming millets which are rich in these micronutrients, it is very important for our heart's health. It is also important to detoxify our body. It has certain chemicals which help in removal of free radicals from our body. Now, free radicals, what do? If they get accumulated in our body with a very high content, they can cause cancer in our body. So this helps, these consumption of these millets, it also helps in detoxification of our body. So because of these nutritional benefits, the whole world is now recognizing these millets, which were earlier known as coarse crops. That is, crops that are not fit for eating for any civil human. They are fit for giving to the animals. So now their importance is being considered in the whole world. Is everyone able to hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you. Then we have certain environmental benefits as well, which are associated with millets. Now, millets, they are very low maintenance crops. They do not require a high amount of investment and a high amount of maintenance while they are growing. Okay. So they are climate resilient crops. That is, if there are any climatic shocks, that is, there is a sudden change in weather, suddenly it starts raining, suddenly the weather, it becomes cold from hot. Okay, so if there are certain shocks, certain climate related shocks, weather related shocks in that particular place, even then the crops, they will not get destroyed. So that is one very important part related to millets. They are climate resilient crops. They are not water intensive. Usually rice, it is one of the most water intensive crop, right? And because of which there are problems of groundwater reduction in northern India, because there is a large amount of cultivation of rice. So these crops, these millets, they do not require a large amount of water. They are also tolerant to many types of pests, many types of diseases, and that is why they are very environmentally beneficial, because they do not require any external herbicides, weedicides, insecticides, or even fertilizers for their growth. So it is very important. They are very important for the soil's health as well. Okay. So apart from that, now we come to the main part. What is their socio-economic benefits? The one we talked about in the previous slide when we were talking about the nutritional benefits, that one, apart from providing food security, they will also provide nutritional security to the people. Okay. Secondly, they are mostly grown in the developing world. In fact, 90% of the millets of the world, 90% of the production of millets, annual production, it is done in Asia and Africa. In fact, one quick fact, India is the biggest producer of millets globally. Even though the amount of land under millets has reduced because of introduction of wheat and rice, we are still the leaders, the global leaders in millet production. Okay, so they are mostly grown in developing worlds, and also they are mostly grown by small farmers which do not have enough money to invest in their fields for irrigation, for insecticides, for herbicides, weedicides, and so on. Okay, so what happens here? Because millets, they do not require such amount of investment, they can grow in arid weather, they can grow in not very fertile soil as well, so they do not require high amount of fertility. So they can grow in unfertile soil as well. They require low amount of water. They do not require any external help like insecticides, like fertilizers. So that is why small farmers, they can easily grow these millets. So what will happen? The developing world and the farmers, the smaller farmers, both will get economically benefited as well. They'll be able to grow these crops at low investment, and because the demand of these millets, they will grow because of their recognition in the world, the returns they'll be getting, that will be higher. Okay, so that is the social and economic benefit of these crops as well. Apart from that, they can also help in diversifying the global food basket. How? Right now, the biggest crop that is exported in the world, they are wheat, rice, and maize. Maize, that is corn, or many of you must know it as bhutta or makai as well, right? So these are the major foods. Now what happened in 2022? Ukraine, it is one of the biggest exporters, I think it is the 5th biggest exporter of wheat in the world. So what happened? Because of the war in Ukraine, there was a crisis, there was a global wheat crisis in the world. So because of that, the prices, they started shooting up. Now, if we are able to diversify the global food basket by including these millets, what will happen? Such events, they will not affect the global food security. And apart from that, even if climate change causes any of these crops to fail, we will have something to fall back upon. So that is another socio-economic benefit of the millets. Millets, they are mostly grown in developing countries because they do not require high amount of investment and they are a good source of nutrition. So they are mostly grown in developing countries where people do not have a lot of money to invest in wheat or rice growth. Okay. Low water, just a second. Okay. This is external help. They do not require external help like insecticides or fertilizers. Okay. Now, one big reason why millets, why 2023 was accepted as the year of millets was because of this reason, that millets play a very important role in fulfilling many of our sustainable development goals. Now, here is the example of these goals which will be fulfilled through these millet crops. Now, target 2. Now, target 2 has many sub-targets. The goal 2, that is elimination of hunger in the world, it has many sub-targets like universal access to safe and nutritious food. Now, millets, they are safe, they do not require a lot of chemicals to grow, and they are nutritious. They have many micronutrients, they have fiber, they have protein, they are gluten free, right? So this will be fulfilled. Then end all forms of malnutrition. Yes, that can also happen because millets are nutritious. Double the productivity and income of small scale food producers, that is the small farmers. They can also grow millets on their land without a lot of investment. Sustainable food production and resilient agricultural practice. Now, we read about the environmental benefits of millets, right? So that will help in fulfilling this target. Maintain the genetic diversity in food production. So we are diversifying our food baskets, right? We are diversifying our food baskets. We are including more and more type of crops and more sub-type of crops. That is, there are multiple types of millets. We are including all of these millets underneath this mission, right? So this will also be fulfilled. So all these will be fulfilled. Then we come to here, target 3.4 of goal 3, that is about health, right? So this target regarding reducing mortality from non-communicable diseases. You know that millets, they are good for diabetes, they are good for cancer, they are good for heart issues, right? So this will also be fulfilled. Then decent work and economic growth. The developing world, it will get, the people in developing world, they'll get decent work. The small farmers, they'll get better returns on their crops. There will be economic growth as well. Sorry. Then responsible consumption and production. You read how many environmental benefits the millets have, right? So when we are consuming, when we are growing millets, we are not causing any damage to soil because we are not using any chemicals to increase their growth, because they are very rigid crops. They are resilient to pests. They do not require soils of very high fertility. So you are not impacting soils, right? You're not using a lot of amount of water, you're not wasting water for their growth, right? So you are responsibly producing and consuming the crops. Then climate actions, this is also there, this has been explained over here. They are climate resilient, right? In the future, if all the crops fail, they will still be there with us. And life on land, because the soil is not getting polluted by these crops. This will also help in fulfillment of SDG 15. Okay. SDG is Sustainable Development Goals that were adopted by the world in the year 2015 with the aim to fulfill these targets by the year 2030. Okay. Okay, just a second. Now we come back to our question. Millets are nutritionally beneficial and their popularization will also benefit developing societies both socially and economically. Elaborate on this statement. You have to tell why is this statement true. So in the introduction, you can mention what are millets. They are small, seeded grasses. You can give a few examples. You can also tell that they are one of the oldest grains that the humanity has been consuming since the past 7,000 years. So that will be your introduction part. Then in the body part, you'll plainly look at the question and see what have they said. Millets are nutritionally beneficial. Okay, you have to elaborate. So first elaborate on this point. Why are they nutritionally beneficial, right? So you will try nutritionally benefits. Then you come to how their popularization will also benefit the developing societies socially. So you go socially and economically. Now, before you start with social and economic part, because they have mentioned developing societies, you need to mention what is the role of millets in the developing societies. So you'll mention more than 90% of the total millet production of the world. It takes place in the developing world, that is in Asia and Africa. So for developing world, they are a very important crop. And then you come to the social and economic benefits that we have already discussed. Okay. So in the end, in a small paragraph, you can also mention the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that they will help us in achieving. So that will definitely enrich your answer. That will show that your knowledge is not one-dimensional. You can also connect the other knowledge areas with your answer. Okay. In the conclusion, you can write that these benefits of the millets, these social, economic, nutritional, and environmental benefits of the millets is the reason why 2022 has been declared as the International Year of Millets by the United Nations on the request of India. Okay, so that will end your answer. Do not forget to write the answer either tonight or tomorrow morning. I know I'm repeating it many times, but it is very important for you. Next. Yes, this is a very good point by Shivraj, that millets, they in this budget, they have been called as Shri Anna. Okay, so you can keep that in mind. Okay, so now we come to the fourth topic, India, the most populous country of the world. So the question here is, India has become the most populous country in the world. In this background, compare Indian and Chinese population policies while stating how the Indian population policies have evolved over time. Okay, they have directly asked that you need to, one, compare the policies of India and China, and secondly, you have to state how the Indian policy, it has evolved over time. Okay, so you have to mention these two things. Yeah. So what is the context related to this? According to World Population Review, which estimates and calculates the population of the world annually, India is now the most populous country of the world. We have finally overtaken China as the most populous country. In another news related to this itself, the World Population Review, the data that they released, according to that, China saw the first fall in its population in 6 decades. So this is the first time in 60 years that the population of China has declined over the past decade. Okay, so moreover, this decline, it is 1 decade faster. It was expected that this decline will take place somewhere in 2030s, but it has taken place in 2020s itself. Okay, so here you can see a projection map. Over here, somewhere around 2023-24, it was estimated back in the year 2017 that India will overtake China, and this has been proven true. India is now the most populous country. So before we go to most populous country and details regarding India, there is one small theory that I would like to introduce to all of you. That is demographic transition theory, according to which the population growth or the population change in any country, in any society, it is divided into various stages. In the first stage, what happens? There is high level of birth rate. Birth rate is high and the death rate is also high. So what happens? The population remains stable and low. Because if 5 people are coming to the world, 5 people are also leaving it. So the population remains stable, but it is low. Then what happens? Due to advancement in technologies, the death rate starts decreasing. So it starts going down. However, the birth rate, it is still high. Okay. So what happens? The population starts increasing. Then what happens? Eventually, even the birth rate, it starts decreasing, it starts stabilizing, and the death rate is decreasing itself. So in stage 3, what happens? The birth rate falls, the death rate, it also falls, but more slowly. Okay, so the increase that was seen over here, where there was high birth rate but low death rate, that stabilizes in the 3rd stage. Then what happens? Comes the 4th stage, where both the birth rate and the death rates become low and the population again becomes stable, but at a high level. So the population becomes stable in the 4th stage. Then after that comes the 5th stage, where the birth rate, it starts rising and the death rate is still low, and the population, it increases but with stability. There is another factor that can take place, another way in which this can go, that the birth rate, it becomes even lower and the death rate becomes low and the population reduces. So the 5th stage, it can be 2 scenarios. Either the birth rate might increase or it might decrease. So if it increases, the population will increase. Otherwise, we'll experience a declining population. Okay. So what about India? How has India experienced these different stages of demographic transition? So till the year 1921, we were in stage 1, where we had high birth rates and we also had high death rates. So our population was stable at low level. That is, we were low in numbers, but our population was constant. It was stable. Then what happens? In 1921, for the first time, there is a decline in the death rates. And with that, we enter the 2nd stage, that is early expanding stage, where the population starts increasing because birth rate remains high, but the death rate, it has reduced. Then between 1951 to 81, we experience an explosion in our population. We experience an explosion in such a manner that in 60s and 70s, the population increased at 24% per decade. That is compared to 1951 to 61. Sorry, that is compared to 1961 to 71 and 1971 to 81. The population increased at almost 24% per decade, and we experienced an explosion in population. Then 1981 onwards, our population, it started stabilizing. We had a steady population growth, and eventually it was seen that with every passing decade, the rate at which our population is growing, it is showing a decline. That is, between 1981 to 91, 91 to 2001, 2001 to 2011, the rate of population growth, it is declining with every subsequent decade. Okay, so that was seen after 1981. In fact, currently, according to World Population Review reports, decade is a, someone has asked what is a decade? So decade is a span of 10 years. Okay. So according to World Population Review, annual population growth rate since the year 2011 has been the lowest till date for India in the past 50-60 years. That is only 1.2% per annum. Compare that to 10 years ago. Since 2001 to 2010, this annual growth rate of Indian population was 1.7%. That is, annually we were growing at 1.7%, whereas between 2011 to 21, we grew annually at only 1.2% per annum. Okay. So also one more thing, that it is expected, according to World Population Review, it is expected that Indian population, it will peak somewhere around the year 2065 and it will reach 1.65 billion. So right now we are somewhere around 1.4 billion. We will reach a peak of 1.65 billion, then our population will rapidly decline. Compared to 2030, that is, we will be around 1.5 billion in 2030. Compared to that, by the year 2100, our population will decline by 32.3%. That is, from 1.5 billion, we'll go to around 1 billion level again. Okay, so these are two facts that you need to keep in your mind. Our population will increase like this, but it will decline very rapidly. Okay, so right now, what is the scenario with regards to population, with regards to fertility rate in India? So according to the latest NFHS, National Family Health Survey. Now, according to the latest National Family Health Survey, that is NFHS 5, India's total fertility rate, it has declined to 2 from 2.2 in NFHS 4. What is total fertility rate? It is the number of children that a woman will have in her reproductive age, that any woman will have in her reproductive age. So it has declined from 2.2 to a level of 2. Now, one very important thing you need to know about TFR, or total fertility rate, is that the TFR of 2.1 is essential for any country, any society to have a stable population. This is known as replacement rate of population. Unless we have a 2.1 total fertility rate, our population will not remain stable. If it is more than 2.1, our population will increase. If it is less than 2.1, our population will reduce. If it is 2.1, our population will remain stable. Okay. Now, for India, the TFR has already gone below this replacement level of 2.1. In fact, out of our 36 states and union territories, for 31 of them, the TFR has become 2.1 or less. There are only 5 states for which the total fertility rate is still above 2.1. These 31 units, these 31 states and union territories, they comprise of around 69.7% of our total population. Okay. Right. So currently, what is the current status of population in India? 68% of our population is in working age. So population is divided into three types. One is working age, that is between 15 to 64 years. Then we have the children less than 15 years, and we have the old population, that is greater than 64 years. Okay, so this is the division of population, and currently 68% of our population is in the working age. And working age, it also coincides with the reproductive age. So because a huge amount of our population is in the reproductive age, what will happen? Our population will keep on increasing till the year 2065, about year 2065, and then afterwards, when the working population or the reproductive population will rapidly reduce, our population will also rapidly reduce. Okay, yeah. So what about India's population policies? Right. So depending upon the 5-year plans, our population policies, they were modulated and updated. So the very important part about India's population policy was that for most of the time, our population policy was democratic. That is, people had a choice to adopt any family planning measures or not adopt them. They had a choice. They had a factor of choice. Also, our policy has always been antenatal, that is, against population growth. We are trying to reduce the growth of our population. So these are two factors associated with India's population policies, right? So now, depending upon the 5-year plans, how have the policies changed? Now, in the first 3 5-year plans, till the year 1969, sorry, till the year 1965, what happened? There was only advisories given to people with regards to family planning. The people were given advice on family planning through the government health centers that were available in every place. And there was establishment of 1650 family planning centers between these 3 plan periods. There was also provision of logistics for providing sterilization equipment to the hospitals and providing the contraceptives to the people so that the population doesn't increase. So we were only depending upon increasing the awareness and the availability of the equipments amongst the people with regards to family planning. Okay. Then in the fourth 5-year plan, time-bound targets were introduced, especially for the healthcare sector, to reduce the birth rate from 3.9% to 2.3% by the year 1979. Why was this change incurred? Because it was the year 1969 when fourth plan came, and you know that between 60s and 70s, India experienced a population explosion. So the policy makers, they identified that something is not working in this policy. Okay, so that is why they started giving time-bound targets to the healthcare workers to convince people to undergo family planning surgeries so as to reduce the birth rates. Okay. Then in the fifth 5-year plan, a rigid policy was introduced for controlling population. Now, fifth 5-year plan, that was between 1974 to 78. So over here, rigid policies were adopted to reduce the population by any way possible. There was compulsion. There were monetary incentives that were given to people to undertake any sterilization surgeries. There were penalties on the people, on the healthcare workers, which were not able to fulfill their targets of the surgeries, the number of surgeries that they had to do in a particular year. Abortion was completely legalized in India. So these radical measures were undertaken during the fifth five-year plan. Now, after that, we realized that these compulsions, these targets, they are also not working, right? 70s also saw a huge increase in population. So then we realized, why is this population increasing? Because the people are not sure whether the child that has born, it will reach a maturity or not. Because the health of the children, it was not focused upon. Only reducing the number of children was being focused upon. If the child is healthy, if the child remains healthy, and there is an assurity amongst the parents that that child will reach a mature stage, then definitely why will they have more children, right? So in the sixth five-year plan, there was integration of health with family welfare and nutritional services at all levels. If the child is getting proper nutrition, proper health care, then that child will grow up to be a healthy individual, and it is very unlikely that that child will perish due to any such reasons. So the parents are assured that this child will grow up to a will grow up, right? This child will not die. So we do not need to produce more children, right? Okay. Apart from that, the monetary incentives, they were also provided to people. People were provided income tax rebates for undergoing surgeries, for spending money on such surgeries, for welfare donations with regards to provisioning of equipments for such surgeries. People, many children of the people who had undergone such surgeries, they were also given certain scholarships. Okay. So from just giving out information, we had now come to a phase where we had integrated family planning with good health of both the child and the mother. Then seventh plan onwards, there was an emphasis on persuading people to undertake family planning measures, be it surgeries, be it use of contraceptives, publicity, family and individual well-being. So these were the focus areas, and many schemes for safe childbirth, for having childbirths in hospitals, they were introduced. So seventh plan and onwards, we reached a phase where we had completely integrated healthcare and family planning systems. So in the year 2000, the National Population Policy was introduced, with focus not only on reducing population, not only on increasing education and awareness amongst the people, especially women and adolescent girls, but it also focused upon better healthcare and nutritional services for both the mothers and the children. Okay. So currently, what are the ongoing interventions for family planning? In the year 2019, Mission Parivar Vikas was introduced, where 146 districts which have a high total fertility rate in 7 states of the country, they were focused upon, where there was an increase in mass awareness campaigns in these districts to persuade people to undertake family planning measures. Okay. Then apart from that, there has been an improvement in supply of contraceptives. In fact, the ASHA workers under the National Health Mission, National Rural Health Missions, the ASHA workers, accredited social health activists, they have also been given responsibility to distribute contraceptives in the households, and they are given special bonuses for doing so. Apart from that, there is National Family Planning Indemnity Scheme. So what is indemnity scheme? In this scheme, the person who is undergoing the surgery, who is undergoing the sterilization or family planning surgery, that person will be insured in case of any accident, in case of death, in case of failure of that family planning method during the surgery. This is during the surgery, any death or disability or accident that can take place during the surgery, or in case of failure of that particular family planning surgery. Apart from that, the providers, the person who is doing the surgery, they are given indemnity, their cost of any litigation that this person, any case that this person starts on this particular healthcare provider or healthcare institute, the cost of that is covered by the government of India. Then we have the RMNCH, that is reproductive maternal newborn and child health counselors, which are counseling you not only on how to better provide healthcare to your newborn kids and the mothers, but also how to reduce, how to undertake family planning. Then we used to have a Jansankhya Sthirta Kosh, which was disbanded, and now these three schemes that were undertaken by JSK, they are now being undertaken by the Department of Health and Family Welfare. So what are these schemes? We have the Prerna strategy, where the newly wed people, they are asked to increase the spacing to have the first child after some duration of their marriage, and increase the spacing between the first and the second child. They are being given the knowledge regarding this. Then we have the Santushti scheme, under which the healthcare providers, like the doctors or the institutes that can provide the sterilization surgeries, they are asked to provide these services under PPP mode. So whatever is the cost of the surgery, half of it is borne by them, half of it is borne by the government. So the person, they only pay the percentage borne by the healthcare provider. Okay. Then we have a national helpline on family welfare, on family planning, where anyone can call and they can get all their doubts related to family planning addressed. Then we have many advocacy and information, education and communication activities related to this. There are certain Saas Bahu Sammelans that are organized across the country to help the whole family understand the importance of family planning. Then in Odisha, a special scheme known as Nai Pehel is started, where the newly married people, they were provided with family planning kits on their wedding day itself. Okay. Yeah. So now we move to the Chinese population control policy. Now very quickly I'll cover this. I know this was covered in the last webinar as well, so I'll cover it very quickly. This was the strict one-child policy that was started in the 1980s. This was so strict that all the population except the ethnic minorities and the people whose first child was disabled. So except these people, the whole population China was included, and they were strictly allowed to have only one child. This led to a decline, a massive decline in the population growth rates of China within 2 decades. That was how rigidly it was implemented. There was rigid implementation that terminated the individual choice. The democracy that Indian population policy provided, that was not there in China. There was termination of individual choice regarding family planning, regarding how many children that particular couple wants. What were the methods of enforcement? There was preferential jobs and financial incentives given to the people who have only one child and who undertake sterilization surgeries after the birth of their child. There was extensive availability, freely available contraceptives in China, and the people who violated the one-child policy, they were strictly fined. They lost their jobs, and there were forced abortions and sterilizations of many couples as well. So what was the consequence of that? There was skewed sex ratio. That is, the sex ratio, number of boys per thousand girls or number of girls per thousand boys. So what happened in China? The number of boys were 3 to 4% more than the number of girls. Why? Because China is a conservative society and the boy child was more preferred compared to a girl child. So what happened before sex determination was available? What used to happen? Either the girls got abandoned or there was female infanticide, right? And afterwards, once sex determination technologies were available, there were female feticides. So what happened eventually? The sex ratio, it became unbalanced. There were 3 to 4% more boys compared to girls. So if there are 1,000 girls, there will be 1,030 or 1,040 boys in the society. Also, there was an increase in the old age population, a rapid increase, because what happened? The total fertility rate, it reduced below the replacement level. So there was a increase in the old population, and the new population that was going to replace it afterwards, it declined. Also, there were many unregistered second children. So whenever a child is born, you need to make a birth certificate, and on basis of that birth certificate, various identity cards are provided to that child. Now what used to happen? To Because of the fear of the sanctions that the people had on the birth of the second child, they did not even report that second child. They didn't used to report the child. So what used to happen? They couldn't get education and jobs because they did not have any identity cards or birth certificates. So there are approximately 1 to 1.5 million such cases in China. So because of these problems, because of these consequences, finally there was a phasing out of this policy by 2015-16. In fact, even though China is a conservative society, a province known as Sichuan province, it has even allowed the unmarried couples to have children now. Okay. Khushbu, infanticide is killing of the infants which have already been born, and feticide is killing of the fetus that is still inside the body of the mother. Okay. Usually the children who were not registered, they were not able to get proper education, proper jobs. Okay. So they were in the unorganized, they went to the unorganized sector of the society. Okay. Yeah. So now we come back to the question. India has become the most populous country in the world. In this background, compare Indian and Chinese population policies while stating how the Indian population policies have evolved over time. In the introduction, you'll mention the World Population Review data that India has now surpassed China to become the most populous country of the world. And it is expected that the population will keep on growing till 2060s, and then there will be a rapid decline in our population. In the body part, first what you need to do, you need to compare, because that is what they have asked you. So you'll first compare. How will you compare? What is the points of comparison? The Indian population policy, it has been democratic. Apart from a very small part, apart from very few years, it has been completely democratic. Even those very few years, they were not reported as forced population policy. They were still democratic. So overall, India's population policy has been democratic. The choice, individual choice, concept of individual choice was never eliminated in India's population policies. Whereas for China, this has been a forced policy. The one-child policy has been forced. Also, because of that, because of this democracy and the forced impacts, in China, there was an instant impact. That is, within 60 years, we have seen a decline in their population. Whereas in India, the results would be delayed. But what will be the benefit of those delayed results? We'll be able to accommodate the changing demography of the country. We'll be able, because this will be a slow change, we'll be able to identify what kind of policy we need. Right now, we need skill development policy. Later on, we'll require some pension policies. Earlier, we required education policy, education for the children. Then they grew up, they needed skills. Then they'll grow old, they'll need pension and other saving schemes, right? So we are able to accordingly modify our policies. So that is a benefit of India's population policy. Okay. Also, India's population policy, another point here is, we started just after our independence, whereas the strict population policy of China, it started in 1980s, around 30 years after their independence. Then our population policy evolution, that tabular format has been given to you. Depending upon how our population was growing, our policy makers, they changed the population policies. Initially, it was just providing information. Then for a while, it was targeted. Then after that, we started including healthcare along with population policies. Okay. Then in the conclusion, you can mention that average total fertility rate of India has already come below the replacement level. Okay. And in the future, by the year 2065, our population will start declining. So that means that our population policies, even though they are democratic, they are not forced, they are working. Okay. Then we come to our last topic, that is NATO in Asia. So the question here is, a wish for NATO membership, that is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So a wish for NATO membership was the triggering event for Russian-Ukraine war. Do you agree? So they are asking you whether you agree or not. If you agree, give the statements in your support. If you do not agree, still give the statements in your support. So you have to answer them. Do you agree? So this is the first part. Do you agree? What could be the impact of increasing ties between East Asian countries and NATO on stability and peace in Asia? So this is the second part. They are asking what can be in the future, what can be the impact of such ties on Asia, right? Okay. So I'll just make one clarification that no, India is not a part of NATO, okay? So NATO, the context regarding this is, NATO head, he has undertaken a 4-day visit in South Korea and Japan with the objective of deepening the political ties and even the security ties between NATO and these two Asian partners. So for NATO, it is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That is, it includes only the countries which are near the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. So apart from Americas and Europe, it does not have any members. However, in Asia Pacific region, it has 4 partner countries, which are Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. Okay, so these are 4 partner countries of NATO. They are not members of NATO, they are just partner countries of NATO. Okay, they are also known as AP4, Asia Pacific 4. Okay. Okay, so about NATO. NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was established under the leadership of USA back in the era of Cold War in 1949. So all these countries, they wanted to come together to have a common platform to discuss their security needs and to propagate the ideas of democracy. So the US section, So there were two sections of the world. There was US and there was USSR. The US section, they wanted to increase or propagate the concept of democracy across the world, right? While USSR was focused on propagating communism across the world, right? So for this purpose, for propagating democracy and for having a platform for collective discussion regarding security of these states, NATO was formed in 1949, and initially it had only 12 members, and currently it has 30 members. Now please note, India is not a part of NATO, okay? So what is important over here, what is important regarding NATO is that AP4, okay, so some students have doubt regarding AP4. AP4 countries are 4 countries of Asia Pacific which are partners of NATO. These 4 countries are Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand, okay? Okay. So Article 5 of NATO, Article 5 of NATO states that attack on any one NATO member is considered as an attack on whole of NATO. So if any member country is attacked, like if France is attacked by any external country, then it will be considered as an attack on NATO. So all the NATO countries, they'll come together to protect France and to have a counter attack on the attacking country. So this is the most important article regarding NATO, and this is a point of contention when it comes to Ukraine and Russia's concerns regarding Ukraine's tilt towards getting a NATO membership. Okay. So about Ukraine and NATO, the history about this relationship. So since 2022, Ukraine had wanted to be a part of NATO. So many former USSR countries, they have become a part of NATO, and similarly Ukraine also wanted to become a part of NATO. In 2008, they formally applied for NATO membership action plan. So they formally applied for NATO membership. However, what happened in 2010? The election that happened, a pro-Russian president was elected. This president was Viktor Yanukovych. Now, because they were pro-Russia, Russia did not want US influence in that area, in its former area, right? So that is why in 2010, under the influence of Russia, this membership application was withdrawn by Ukraine. Then in 2014, what happened? Due to a civil unrest in Ukraine, this president, which was elected in 2010, he had to flee from Ukraine. And this also triggered, this civil unrest also triggered Russia's annexation of Crimean Peninsula of Ukraine. So Crimea is a peninsula that belongs to Ukraine. However, angered due to this civil unrest and the fleeing of this president, Russia annexed this Crimean Peninsula. So what happened in 2014 when Crimea was annexed by Russia? Ukraine got angry too. So their wish to join NATO, it increased. Now they really wanted to join NATO, because if they were a part of NATO, no country could touch them, right? So in 2017, the parliament of Ukraine, they made getting a NATO membership a priority. Okay. In 2019, accordingly, the constitution was amended. The constitution of Ukraine was amended to join NATO. In 2021, what happened? The current president of Ukraine, Zelensky, he urged the then new president of USA, that is Joe Biden, for a NATO membership. And this triggered Russia. So what did Russia start doing? they started deploying more and more military infrastructure at the Russia-Ukraine border. So there were a lot of heated arguments, many interviews given by Russian people, Russian government officials, by Putin, by US government officials, by Joe Biden, by Zelensky against each other. Okay. So currently, what is the status of Ukraine? Currently, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but it is a partner country. So they will be getting the moral support, but not any armed support of the NATO members. Okay. So Russia, when in 2021, it was Zelensky asked for Biden's support in getting a NATO membership, Russia called this entire exercise, that is interference of NATO in the Eastern European countries, which were formerly the members of USSR, as breaking of a 1990 security guarantee. So according to Putin, the Russian president, according to Putin, the 1990 security guarantee said that NATO would not expand itself in Eastern Europe, but NATO has violated that pact by trying to come to the Eastern European side. Okay. So, because of this, Russia started building troops on the Ukrainian border since the year 2021 itself, and finally in February 2022 they attacked Ukraine. So yes, NATO membership, a wish for NATO membership, to have someone to protect them, their internal matters and the external matters against Russia, that wish led to the Ukrainian-Russian war. Okay. So the background of the current visit of NATO head to South Korea and Japan. So what is the background of the current visit? So there was a summit, that is meeting of the head of the states of the NATO members in Spain in June 2022. So since then there has been many movements that are being taken place in this region. So we'll go to them. Generally, there has been a growing threat to Japan and South Korea from both China and North Korea. North Korea is undertaking a lot of missile tests, especially since the 2022 NATO summit, when Japan and South Korean leaders, they said that yes, they are feeling threatened because of China and North Korea, and they need more and more support of the NATO in order to limit this particular threat. Okay, so since then North Korea has increased its missile tests in the region. China is also building up its troops and military capacities in the East and the South China Seas. In fact, just after Russia invaded Ukraine, China, it conducted shows of strength in the regions around Taiwan. Now, China considers Taiwan as its own territory, while Taiwan considers itself as an independent country. So, after Russia attacked Ukraine, China tried to show that we are also strong. So, do not forget that we can also attack you any day. Okay. In December 2022, Japan, because of these dangers that were lurking around it, it introduced its new security strategy. It increased the military budget. It increased the cooperation with USA with regards to security. And since World War II, Japan had a policy that it will only have limited military for its own self-defense. But that policy was reserved in this strategy. So they started deploying troops, that is soldiers, and also long range missiles so that they could protect themselves against any external threats. So they started increasing deployment of troops as well as long range missiles. And apart from that, they have now also contemplated upon allowing defense exports. So the defense exports, that is export of the arms and ammunition from Japan to other countries, they are now going to allow that as well, which is a big move for Japan. Okay. So about the current visit, as stated earlier, it is to deepen the ties between the democracies of the world against authoritarian regimes. By saying authoritarian regimes, they mean three regimes, that is Russia, North Korea, and China. So this is a tongue-in-cheek approach to talk about these three countries by calling them authoritarian regimes. So democracy should win against such authoritarian regimes, according to NATO. They also need to boost the cooperation in cyber security and military intelligence. So cyber space is a new space for warfare amongst the countries, right? So through hacking, many of the essential functions of a country, they can be disabled by any other country. So there is a need to boost cooperation in cybersecurity and military intelligence. So the NATO head talked about these factors with the South Korean and Japanese leaders. Apart from that, they also urged South Korea to provide military support to Kyiv. Kyiv is Ukraine's capital. Okay, so right now South Korea is only providing humanitarian support, that is medicines, food, and so on. Okay, they are not providing any arms because according to their policy, they do not provide arms and ammunition to any country which is under conflict. If the country is not under conflict, it is in a peacetime, they can get arms and ammunition from South Korea. For example, they are providing it to Poland, but they are refusing to provide it to Ukraine because that country is under conflict. However, the NATO head has asked South Korea to provide these arms to Ukraine. Now, many experts, they call this trip a reassurance to the Asian partners of NATO against the influence of this troika, these three authoritarian regimes, that is Russia, China, and North Korea. So it is like a reassurance that in case any of these countries attack you, we will have your back. We will support you somehow. Okay. So what is the response to this visit by these countries, by North Korea, by China? Now, North Korea stated flatly that this is a prelude to confrontation and war. According to them, NATO is trying to start another Cold War on Asian ground. So according to North Korea, that is the case. China, just after the Madrid summit in June 2022, when South Korea and Japan said that they are feeling threatened and they need more NATO influence in Asia, back then China said that NATO's eastward expansions after the Cold War, they have not brought any peace to Europe. They have only led to increase in conflicts in Europe. So that was the statement of China, and that was kind of a warning to the countries, to South Korea and Japan, that you cannot bring peace through these activities. Now, both countries on multiple occasions, both North Korea and China on multiple occasions have warned NATO to restrain itself from getting involved in Asia Pacific region and try to develop an Asia Pacific counterpart of NATO. NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so only the countries along the North Atlantic region are a part of NATO. So according to China and North Korea, NATO is trying to develop an Asia Pacific counterpart of NATO, and they have warned NATO to not do that, not get indulged over here. Okay. So this warning, it actually sounds a little familiar. It is similar to the warning that Russia gave to NATO and to US when Ukraine wanted to join NATO. So yes, we can draw certain amounts of conclusion from this. Okay. So we come to our question. A wish for NATO membership was the triggering event for Russian-Ukraine war. Do you agree? What could be the impact of increasing ties between East Asian countries and NATO on stability and peace in Asia? Okay. So Cold War, some of you are asking. So Cold War was an era between 1945 till 1991 when USSR disintegrated. So it started just after the end of the Second World War. For more details, you can attend the world history lectures. Okay. Right now, it is not the correct time to go in more details regarding Cold War. Okay. So first, we start with the first part. In the introduction, you'll give a brief about NATO and how Ukraine, since the year 2002, except a brief period between 2010 and 14, they wanted to be a part of this particular organization. You can also talk about some of NATO's Asia Pacific partners like Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. Now, in the body, you can mention whether or not you agree. So usually it is a fact that yes, this was the triggering event. So Russia, since the disintegration of USSR, Russia was the biggest successor of USSR, biggest successor state, and it wanted to control the internal politics and the external decisions of all the different parts that came out of USSR. Okay. So Russia is very possessive about these countries, right? So they do not want any external interference in these countries except Russian interference. So because of that, when Ukraine, they wanted to join NATO, Russia took a note of it and they objected this joining of NATO by Ukraine many times. Okay. So in short, you can discuss the timeline of Ukrainian demand of NATO membership and also the Russian objections to it. So you'll mention that yes, this was one of the triggering events for the Russian-Ukrainian war because so and so, because Ukraine had been wanted to join NATO, but Russia was against this and they warned NATO and Ukraine multiple times. Then you can discuss about NATO's Asian partners. These are not members of NATO. Okay. There are not 5 members, there are only 4 members. So many people are asking what are the 5 members. There are only 4 members in Asian Pacific regions of NATO. So you discuss about these Asian partners. Asian partners are only 2. Rest 2 are Pacific partners. Asian partners are Japan and South Korea. Discuss upon Japan and South Korea and how in the Madrid summit they had said that they do feel threatened by China and North Korea in the region. Then you can mention about this particular visit and how China and North Korea, they have been objecting this visit. They have been objecting the increasing involvement of NATO in the Asian Pacific region. And you can mention that yes, in the longer term, this can have, you don't have to mention it in a very rigid manner. You can mention that this can have a similar impact as the NATO involvement or NATO interference in Russian-Ukrainian war was like. Okay, so that will finish your answer. And in the conclusion, you can mention very generally that Asia consists of the maximum amount of humanity on the world, right? So Asia's concerns should be different, related to development and not related to wars and other things which will pull us back. So you can just conclude your answer with such a statement. Okay, yeah. So that is all about today's session. So with that, we end our today's session. We are almost on time. So many of you are asking, why is India not a part of NATO? India has never been a part of any organizations, any such organizations. We were not a part of NATO. We were not a part of Warsaw Pact. That was a NATO counterpart of USSR. We have always been non-aligned. We have not aligned ourselves to any particular group when it comes to defense and strategic. When it comes to defense and strategy, we have individual relations with many countries, but we are not part of any such group. Okay, so I guess you have understood everything that we have discussed in this session. So thank you very much for attending it, even though we shot by 5 minutes, overshot by 5 minutes. Do not forget to attempt the answers tomorrow. Do write the answers. That will help you in your mains exam, okay? And keep preparing for your prelims exam. All the very best and good night to everyone.